Hey everyone, Zabracus here, and today I am going to be going over a Magic the Gathering arena deck that I created. It is a Jeskai Fires Obosh deck. I know, sounds a little bit crazy. This deck is based off of the Ikoria Lair of Behemoths expansion from 2020, and this deck is so much fun to play. I absolutely love it. So in this video, I'm going to show you a couple games, we're going to go through it, and I'm going to kind of explain the mechanics of it, and why this deck is pretty amazing. So, let's go check it out. But first, make sure to upvote the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel, and all that good stuff. I also stream Magic on Twitch, so we'll see you there. Alright, so let's take a look at this deck. So first thing we need to know is the reason that we chose Obosh to put in a Fires deck is because Obosh, as a companion, you have to have only odd-mannered cards in that deck. Whereas if Obosh is in the deck, that stipulation doesn't matter. So we don't have Obosh as a companion for this deck. Instead, we do have Karuga as our companion. But as you guys will see in just a second, Obosh is one of the big boys in our Jeskai Fires deck. So as you can see, pretty traditional Jeskai Fires deck. Again, we have Karuga as companion. We've got Brazen Borrower, Bonecrusher Giant, Mystical Dispute, Teferi, Deafening Clarion, all to help with control and whatnot. Sphinx to help scry, of course, Fires of Invention. And then those are our big hasty boys. And then, of course, Obosh, so that we can get double damage. And just, you know, typical assortment of 26 lands for the deck. And then what we have on the sideboard, we have Grafdigger's Cage to, you know, prevent Winota decks or Graveyard decks, Banishing Light, Mystical Dispute for control, Nurset to help with cycling and control decks, Warboss if we need to be extra hasty, and Ashiok to help with graveyard decks and cycling decks. So we have a decent array of options that we can do depending on the decks that we play. But let's go ahead and dive right on in. Here we go. Okay, so for this first match, ooh, we get to play first. That's always a good thing. This is a terrible hand. One land and basically nothing else. Bad. This is solid. We have the Sphinx so that we can scry. We have Teferi for control. We have Deafening Clarion and Time Wipe for board clear. And of course we have Fires of Invention in the deck, which is all great. All great. And we can just boop the Clarion. The reason I booped the Clarion back to deck is simply because we're playing a Yorion companion deck, so the likelihood of actually running into small creatures early on is pretty low. So we'll slowly get our lands out here. We don't necessarily want to do our Scryland just right now. I'd rather use that, you know, when we kind of need to right now, so that we can definitely get, or at least try to get Teferi out on turn 3, which is vital against a Yorion deck, which is almost always indicative of a control deck, right? So we can do our Castle Ventress and try to get Teferi out. Alright, so he resolved, which is amazing. I seriously can't believe that the opponent did not have a Mystical Dispute. That's pretty ridiculous. So that means we can definitely get Fires of Invention and Sphinx out next turn, because there's not really any removal that a Bant Yorion would really have with only 3 mana on the board, only 2 open mana. So here we get Fires, and then we go ahead and get our Sphinx out, and we're just going to +1 our Tef. There's no reason to -3 him right now to try to draw a card. And there's nothing that we need to remove from the board, so +1 it is. Alright, so now we just gotta wait to see what the opponent does. They're gonna have their 4th mana on the board. There's a good chance that they will play their own Teferi. If they throw another blue on the deck, they might play a Narset, Evolving Wind, so they put a fetch land on the board. Ooh, they didn't play any cards. Interesting. So they must not have any small cards. Maybe they just have a bunch of counter spells in hand. Maybe big creatures. Who knows? Or by big creatures, I mean big spells. All right, so we'll put our 5th mana on the board. We're going to go ahead and play Karuga right here so that we can draw 3 cards while we can. And we're going to hopefully draw, you know, something hasty so that we can really get this going. Oh, perfect. All right, so we can easily get our Cavalier on the board. And if they don't have any blockers, it's possible they could cycle a shark to block something, because that's really the only way that they'd be able to create a blocker or removal right now. But otherwise, we easily win this match on turn 5. But let's see what happens. So based on the pausing, it's definitely seeming like they're going to cycle a shark as a blocker. Let's just continue waiting. And there it is. So Shark Typhoon cycled so they can create simply a 1/1 shark to block with, right? Just to save their face and maybe survive one more turn. Maybe, we'll see. All right, so we'll go ahead and +1 Tef. Or actually, we're going to -3 Tef, and we are going to put the Cavalier back in our hand. That way, there's a very good likelihood of our opponent having a Shatter the Sky in the deck, or possibly some other kind of removal. And so we definitely want to make sure that our Hasty Boy is in our hand so that if that happens, we can actually still, you know, play a hasty creature next turn and win. So let's wait to see what opponent does. Again, the likelihood of them having a Shatter or another land for in Elspeth is pretty high, but there's that Shatter. So fantastic that we booped that Cavalier back to our hand. And we have a Sphinx in hand as well, so we could play the Sphinx and a Kenny. So we had several ways of winning this turn regardless. So, you know, because we played conservatively, because we played smart, we're winning this first round right here. And we don't even need to boost the Cavalier. We can just haste Kenny and we're fine. All right. So for this particular sideboard, we're actually just going to skip game 2. We actually end up losing game 2. We almost get the opponent dead, but, you know, they got the board advantage, so we lost. So this is game 3, and pretty not necessarily the best opening hand to keep, but we had the Scryland, we had Narset, and so with Narset we could have found fires, but luckily we top decked fires pretty quickly. And now we can try to get Narset out. I'm mostly playing Narset right here, expecting them to counterspell. And there it is. There's that Mystical Dispute. We want to try to get them to play their counterspells early on for cards that we don't necessarily need right off the bat. That way we can actually try really hard to resolve this Firesome Invention. So unless they have a Quench, Aether Gust. So we just have it at the top of our deck again. So this gives our opponent a chance to do something. Let's wait to see what they do. They could play Teferi right here. They could play Narset. They could play Uro. Okay, so they played a tap land and Narset. All right, so this works pretty well for us. We'll be able to get fires out with no worry about a counterspell whatsoever. And they do have Shatter the Sky in hand now. So knowing that, we're gonna have to be a little bit careful about how we put these hasty boys on the board. But we've got a stacked hand, assuming that we can top deck 1 land, right? This is pretty insane. All right, so they've got 5 mana open, and we know that they have a counterspell, right? Oh, perfect. There's our 5th land. So let's go ahead and try to bait that neutralize out of their hand. We know that they are going to counterspell something, right? We have 2 Kennys in hand, so let's go ahead and put 1 on the board and try to bait that counterspell. Let's see what they do. If they don't counterspell it, I'd be really surprised, especially since they know that we have Fires of Invention on the board, and it's pretty ridiculous. So now I don't really want to put any of the other things in our hand on the board because we know that they have a Shadow of the Sky, right? So we're gonna try to get Kruga on the board. And it's fine that we don't draw the cards. We don't really need the extra cards in our hand right now. So let's go ahead and try to get this 10 damage in. It's always possible that they could cycle a shark, but I mean, 5 or 10 damage either way, I'm pretty happy. Perfect. I'm kind of surprised they actually let us get 10 damage into their face and that they didn't try to neutralize either of those. But again, they have Shadow the Sky, so they assume that they're going to be fine after this turn. The best part about that is they're only going to have, especially since they just put in a tap land, they're only going to have 1 mana open, right? So even after Shatter, they're not going to be able to counterspell any of our creatures, right? Because there's not... Mystical Dispute won't stop a white or a red spell, so we're completely fine. So just to show you guys how nasty Obosh is, let's go ahead and do Kenny and Obosh on the board. We are about to do 16 damage to their face. We'll GG them. That you guys missed game 2, but it was pretty intense. It was a good game overall. So as you can see, Obosh paired with Kenny and Cavaliers is pretty OP, right? So this next matchup is against a Winota deck. We lost the first round, but here we are in round 2. So let's see how things are gonna go. And remember, with Winota, basically, we made sure to sideboard in Grafdigger's Cage. We took Karuga out of our companion slot so that we can really try to get Grafdiggers on the board. That way they can't use Winota to her full potential of searching her library to find those Agents of Treachery, those Kenriths, and just, you know, anything from her library, really. Like, we don't want that whatsoever. That way we can hopefully actually have a chance. But generally we do pretty well against matchups against Winota, simply because we have a lot of board clear. We have a decent amount of control. We also made sure to take out the Mystical Disputes. This hand is great. We've got 3 lands. We've got Sphinx to scry for everything else. This is actually pretty solid. We'll just move Time Wipe to the 5th slot. That way we can get all 5 lands. And then if we need to, we can use Time Wipe right then. But we've got so much board control right here, right? So we have our Bone Crushers in hand for many of their 1 and 2 drops. We've got a Deafening Clarion for board clear. We can play Sphinx turn 4 if we need to. We've got all the land we possibly need, including a Scry land. So, and we have Time Wipe coming. So really, we should be able to hold ourselves pretty well until they, you know, until we actually start drawing the cards that we need. All right, so they started with their Prince. We can easily stomp it. They still get a Scry too, but that's fine. And hopefully we can find our Grafdigger's Cage pretty early on. That will be really crippling to them. So we'll go ahead and play another Shockland, but we'll tap it this time since we don't really need to play any of our 3 drops right now. Ooh, perfect. Okay, so they're going to try to play their War Boss, but ooh, we've got that Bone Crusher. All right. No hope for them. Still nothing that we absolutely need to play right now. Teferi is totally fine, but we can get one of our Bone Crushers on the board as a blocker. And then next turn we can play Teferi, we could play the Sphinx, or if we need to, we can Clary on the board. Really just depends on what they do. So we can definitely block. So I think we're going to play Teferi. We are going to remove their Legion War Boss from the board so that we can get an easy 4 damage to face. And we are just going to let that in tapped because there's nothing else we really need to play this turn. Not that we can really play anything else this turn. Ooh, interesting choice. Kenrith. Okay. Okay. So we are going to +1 our Teferi here. And we're going to drop Obosh on the board. That way our Bone Crusher can either get 8 damage to face, or it will kill their Kenrith. So let's see if they block. I'm betting, yeah, they're just going to let us get 8 damage to face. I don't think they'll let us do that again. But we've still got some good options. Even if they drop a bunch of stuff on the board here, we can Time Wipe it. And I'm not worried about a Winota right here. They've only got 5 mana with only 1 red. Okay, now they have 6 mana. That's fine. But they don't have anything that is a non-human that would trigger Winota. I mean, they do now. So they've just fed our Time Wipe so well. It's great. They have to attack with that little minion, so obviously we're gonna block it. Okay, so best option here is to time wipe. Let's try to attack first, see what they do. See, I mean, they're not gonna let any damage through, but we always gotta try, you know? Always gotta try. If you don't try, what's the point? So let's just see what they block with. Probably the Hanged Executioners, I would think. I would presume that they want that War Boss alive to create more things, but yeah. Okay, so now we have the opportunity to time wipe. And right here, I actually make a mistake. I choose Obosh when I should have chose a Bone Crusher, because Bone Crusher, we would have easily been able to do 2 damage to face next turn. But I think we'll be okay regardless. So they're playing Flip this turn. And War Boss. So all of this we can clear with a Deafening Clarion, so it's going to be just fine. Because they're trying to get non-humans on the board so that once they actually play Winota, they'll be able to pull things from their deck and it'll be meaningful, right? So if we just keep board clearing, we should be good. And now we can play the Bone Crusher again. So that we have a blocky boy. So, okay. Agent, okay. So Agent to still our Bone Crusher, but honestly, they kind of did us a favor because now we can -3 Art to Fairy. They have no open mana to counter anything, and here's that 2 damage to face that we needed and should have had a couple turns ago. But it's okay, we made it work. So overall, we won. So as you can see, we took Karuga out. We sideboarded in Grafdigger's Cage because they can't be in at the same time. We could put Karuga in our main board, but there's not really a point. We don't need the draw, really. Okay, game 3. Let's see how we do. This is a decent hand. We've got Sphinx so that we can scry to try to get fires, another land, some more board clear. We've got the Bone Crusher to help with board clear. Ooh, there's our Grafdigger's Cage. Ooh, we are absolutely letting that be the first thing that we draw. We are going to shock this land in. We are playing Grafdigger's Cage. We are asserting our dominance that they are not allowed to play Winota. I mean, they can play Winota, but we are making it so she's useless, basically. So flip on the board so they can get their card draw. And now we can scry, make sure that we can start getting some things that we need. We should hopefully get fire soon. And there's not really any point in stomping Flip because he'll just go back in deck. So what we're going to do right here, we're going to scry for not land, and we're going to stomp that War Boss. And we are going to hope and pray that they don't have their 4th land and Winota, because if they do... Okay, there's a 4th land, but if they... Oh, whew! Okay, so they didn't have Winota, which is great, because that would have been... Or actually, no, even if they had Winota, it wouldn't have mattered, because we have Grafdigger's Cage on the board. So, I mean, whatever. So they're probably waiting so that they can find a way to get Grafdigger's Cage off the board. Let's go ahead, throw the Vantress on the board. We could Sphinx, we could Tef. We're going to go ahead and Sphinx first, just so that we can try to start... getting some of these creatures off the board and preventing them from attacking our face, right? Ooh, they do not want that Grafdigger's Cage on the board as they hover over it. It is the ultimate weakness for a Winota deck, absolutely. And especially since it's just such a good value card, a 1-drop that completely destroys this deck. So they play Tef, they're booping the Sphinx back to our hand. That's predictable, that's fine. 4 damage to our face, it's fine. We've got a decent amount. It would have been better had we actually gotten a board clear right there, but it's fine. We can play Sphinx again, get another land out. We'll be okay. They're probably going to +1 their Tef. And then, I mean, they might try to attack some things. Oh, okay. So they're going to Teferi. They're going to boop the Sphinx again. But that's fine. We'll be okay. So that's another 4 damage to face. So now we're down to 6 life. It's getting a little sketchy, and we just top decked a land, which does not help us whatsoever. But we do have 6 mana on the board, so we're going to Teferi. Let's take some of this damage off the board, right? So we're gonna go ahead and remove the Charming Prince so that we only take 2 damage, and then we're gonna drop some land and Bone Crusher. I was really hoping that in that -3 draw we would have top decked Fires, but no such luck. No such luck. Alright, so they're probably going to play the Charming Prince again, just so they can scry and continue trying to find the cards that they need, right? And we have to be really careful here since we don't have a whole lot of life. We do have enough mana on the board that we can start dropping some of the bigger cards, and that could be good in our favor. But a board clear would be our best option. And right here, I make another mistake. This is actually an almost fatal mistake. I block Floop rather than the Goblin, letting our Teferi die. I did not mean to do that, but you know, sometimes we make mistakes. So let's go ahead and do the Fabled Passage, the Fetch Land, just so that we can reshuffle the deck and hopefully stop drawing cards that we don't really need. We are going to try to kill this Charming Prince just so that we have less damage on the board. But it looks like they are going to block it. How rude. Rude, but we still have 5 open mana on the board. Okay, wow, Dovin's Veto. All right, see, I was just expecting a Mystical Dispute, but Dovin's Veto, they were not playing around that time. So we could Sphinx, we could Obosh. Let's try killing this Teferi. It'll kill the Charming Prince, I'm sure, because they're definitely not wanting their Teferi dead. So we'll kill that Prince just fine. And then let's go ahead and play Obosh so that next turn we can get a bunch of damage in. We can also, we have 7 lands on the board, so we can play the Cavalier and we can boost it. However, we won't be able to boost it because we don't have that 4th red mana. But we could at least get it on the board if we want to. Alright, so opponent has 5 open mana. What will they do? Nothing. They're doing nothing. Okay, so first things first. Again, we can't haste the Cavalier, so there's not really a point in playing it right now. Let's try to attack first. Let's get a bunch of damage to their face. They're probably going to block. Ooh, raise the alarm. Oof. Okay, so they can definitely block now. I should have known that they would have had that coming and preparation for that. In which case I would have tried to kill their Teferi, because now Teferi is big enough that they can remove Grafdigger's Cage next turn, and we're not going to do well. So let's try to get this other Grafdigger's Cage on the board, just in case. And oh my gosh, another Dovin's Veto. Oh, brutal. Okay, that means that they probably have Winota in hand, and they're out for blood. Okay, so we know that Teferi is going to boop that Grafdigger's Cage as soon as they get Winota on the board, right? And they have the 2 tokens, which will give them 2 pulls from Winota. So really, if they play Winota here, yeah, there she is, oh dear. Our only hope is that they don't pull a Kenny, that they don't pull Agent of Treachery. We just have to hope that with these two draws for Winota, that they don't get anything they need. And if they don't, they lose, right? Because we've got so much damage on the board that they'll die. We have more than 10 damage, and they only have 1 blocker. Possibly no blocker, depending on what they get. And I can't believe we actually lucked out right there. They pulled nothing from Winota. We just happened to be many times with her, and we're top decking a Kenrith. So in addition to everything, we can trample. Like, this is going to be a lot of damage. Oh shoot, I didn't manually tap the mana, so we can't trample. But I mean, we've still got way more than 10 damage, right? We've got at least 10 damage or more than that. So There's our 10. And there is our win. Boom! So there you guys see just how useful Obosh is with that double damage. Alright, so that was the Obosh Fires deck. As you can see, it can be a pretty powerful deck if you can get the cards out as you need them. But, you know, with any deck, if you can't get the cards out you need, it's just kind of moot anyway, right? So thank you guys so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed that video. Hopefully you now have some fun deck brews and ideas for yourself. If you would like to go ahead and use my Obosh Fires deck, the link is down below. Feel free to use it, modify it, do whatever you want with it. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of this deck and all of that in the comments as well. Again, I do stream Magic the Gathering Arena on Twitch weekly, so feel free to follow me there. And otherwise, until next time, stay geeky. We'll see you later, guys.